Hello there, and welcome to the Untitled Film Podcast with Callum and Johnny. I'm Johnny.
And I'm Callum.
And this week, we have a special guest.
The most special of guests. Now, you might know this person from his Instagram, and if you haven't subscribed already, better go and subscribe. Click that bell to Mr. Dogbrain Videos. But we do have a question to ask.
What is your actual name?
Sorry, I'm miles away. I was looking at the postman. I don't like it when the and comes through, so I was just on guard. What was the question?
So we know that your channel is called Dogbrain Videos, but who are you? What's your name?
My name is Dogbrain Videos.
So what's your first name?
Dogbrain.
And your second name?
Videos. I just tell you that. My name is Dogbrain Videos. Like, all right, the Videos family. We come from a long line of like coal mine workers. The Videos family. They were, but it's a story for another time. But we have a great lineage. Great, you know.
So did you invent videos then? Is they the videos named after your family?
Well, what most people don't know is that videos aren't actually like the videos you know, like pressing play and watching stuff. It's their surname. And we fought really hard in '83 to have our name trademarked and taken away from VHS. We're getting very complicated.
I don't think that's true.
But that's what my mum told me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay.
She bless her heart.
And who else is in the Dogbrain family?
Well, I've got a family, but they ain't part of this, you know. But my nephew, he loves it. He's always coming up with little funny ideas for the show.
And so what's his name?
Nephew Videos.
Right, okay. I'm glad we've cleared that
Yes, that
all up.
very much clears the air. Thank you very much.
But if
You're
you
welcome.
want to see, well, you're going to hear quite a lot of Mr. Dogbrain video over the next hour.
Yes, he will be our guest today, and he's going to get stuck in with the movie reviews and all the good stuff.
Absolutely. But once you have finished this, I highly recommend that you go onto YouTube, type in Dogbrain Videos, and see his amazing channel, which is great fun. He did a great little video for us a couple of weeks ago when there was a glitch in the Matrix and we lost all of our systems, which we are forever thankful for him for doing. So yeah, go on there, press the like and subscribe, and he's got new videos most weeks now, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just funny little stuff, you know, me and nephew get up to. We recently did a ghost hunt in Plockley, scary place. But that'll be out soon.
Good.
Fantastic. Make sure to go and watch those, like them, comment on them, do all the stuff and share them to your friends and family. Not that any of our listeners have any of those.
And actually that video may even be out by the time this comes out, because this week, what are we going to be talking about?
Well, this is our very, very first Christmas episode. We wish you a merry, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, he's not allowed to sing.
I'm not allowed to
turn your
sing.
volume down.
Yes, and we've already had enough technical errors, and we don't know what that will do.
I got sensitive ears. I would appreciate it, you know.
Because dogs can only hear certain pitches, can't they?
I know, so luckily, maybe you can just talk in a pitch that I can't hear. Then it would be great.
So with this do,
But I can still smell you.
you go a bit deeper. Is that what you can
Dog-
hear?
Is it high? No, it's high
it
volume.
needs to go higher. Do you not know how dogs' ears work?
Yeah, I was going to say that.
I'm not au fait with how dogs
Hang
work.
on. No, it's high ones that dogs can hear, because that's what dog whistles are high. Don't you know how your own ears work?
No, but then you're meant to go higher than the dog whistle, so
Right.
it goes invisible
That
to
you
a
have
dog.
to go to a point where you can't hear. I'm so high you can't hear me.
Well, I wish that every week, but unfortunately it's yet to
It's
happen.
never going to happen. I'm stuck in. I'm burrowed in like a tick or a flea.
Do you want to... should we replace Callum? Do you want to be on this full time, this podcast?
Please say no.
I will see how it goes. Let's see if you two are interested enough. I might just get bored and walk out
Haven't got
halfway
much
through.
else going on, you know. So
If you hear me barking at the door, it means I need a wee. So keep that in mind. I might not be the best host.
But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. Yeah,
We'll find out.
excellent. So, for our first Christmas episode, Callum, what are we going to be talking about?
Well, we have two. I was going to say stinkers, but you know that's unfair to one of them at least. So we have the new Netflix Lindsay Lohan sort of Hallmark Channel-esque, but it's not Hallmark Channel. It's
very Hallmark Channel.
It's Netflix. It's called Falling for Christmas, and it's one of those stories. We'll summarise the plot in a minute.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute.
If you know Hallmark Christmas movies, you know exactly what the plot is without us even having to say a single word. And the second film is the 1996, I'm saying that without looking at IMDb, so I might be off by a year.
It's about right.
Jingle All the Way with Arnold as the
Arnold who?
Schwarzenegger.
Who?
The governor of California.
The big one, the big man.
The big lad, yeah.
What, The Rock?
No, he's Arnold point two.
Right, okay.
This is the original Arnold. Arnold is the original Arnold.
Okay. Now, I'm glad we've cleared that up as well. We're doing a lot of clearing up on this episode.
Yes, it's a lot to clear up. This is a surprisingly complicated episode.
So, and this is going to tie many things together. Why have we invited Mr. Dogbrain, Mr. Video, onto this episode?
Well, many many years ago, his first viral hit before the dog even existed, he came up with a video.
Dogs always existed.
Yes, dogs existed. He didn't exist
he did.
He's
always been a dog.
YouTuber.
I'm only 7. All right, so this might be a bit before my time.
So an entity that may have evolved into Dogbrain videos came up with his first viral hit on YouTube. It was a drinking game around the film Jingle All the Way.
See, we have plugged all this together. And what did we ask on the socials this week?
Well, we asked on the socials, which none of you time-wasting parasites answered, is can you make a drinking game out of a movie? What are the rules? What's the movie? And I believe, Johnny, you have one.
Well, I think first we should ask Mr. Brain about his...
Yes, the original.
Hit
video.
Drinking game.
Oh, it's Mr. Videos, not Mr. Brain. We've gone through this, but I'll let you off. It's Christmas.
And
it's a stressful time. Suicide rates are high. I can see you're stressed.
And how many views did that video have?
Something in the region of, I don't know. Let's have a look. Someone look it up. How much views has that got now?
Oh, God, it's going to take a while.
That was released 7 years ago.
You tell them about the game. I'll find out the viewership.
Jingle All the Way drinking game. I was sitting at home, right, and I just had some gingerbread men. I was gnawing on one's head, and I was watching Jingle All the Way, and I was like, you can make a drinking game out of this, because it's quite fun. So, let me go through some of the rules. So, Jingle All the Way. Every time someone says Turbo Man, you have a drink. And I counted, there's about 120 times Turbo Man's mentioned. So every time he summoned, you have one. What? Yeah. Every time Arnold Schwarzenegger says Jamie, that's a good one. He's always saying Jamie in that. Jamie's the little one, the Anakin Skywalker.
Jamie.
And that's another one. Every time you see a Christmas hat, you have a drink. What's another one? Every time someone would have died in real life, you have a drink. And that happens a lot. There's like a bomb that goes off and everyone's all right. There's a lot of trampling, especially the fight at the end, you know. Are we doing spoilers?
Well, it's fine. It's the old one, so we can spoil
the old
as much
movie.
as you like.
Spoil as much as we like.
That's all right then, isn't it? Yeah. So when they're like fighting on top of the rooftop at the end, there's like you would die. The little kids up on there. There's blades. There's shit flying about. So every time someone would have died in real life, you have a drink, and many others.
Excellent. And that video has 16,000 views on YouTube.
That's
About
bad.
16,000 more people than listen to us.
Exactly.
Should have monetized
There
it.
is also another person a year ago who made a video called Lost Videos called The Jingle All the Way Drinking Game that's 3 seconds shorter than yours, but his only has 50 views. So sucks to be him.
What a cunt.
Loser.
Tried to copy your idea and lost.
Well,
Anyway, so I also came up with a drinking game. A drinking game for the movie Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh,
which
interesting.
Argument, is it a Christmas or a
I think it's okay.
I think it's more
okay.
Christmas, personally.
Personally, me too.
But anyway, so the first one is someone asked the question, what's this? Take a drink. So there is a song where what's this is asked many, many times.
You'll be blind drunk before the end of that song.
And that song's quite early on in the film as well. Every time there's like an insect that gets like trodden on or eaten or
anytime there's incest.
But speaking of insects, every time the character Sally is sexually harassed, because actually looking back at that film, there's some quite problematic behaviour around the Sally character. They were my 3 drinks, and I think by the end of that film you'd be pretty blind drunk.
I think
with those
so too.
3 things.
I came up with nothing, by the way.
As ever.
Did
Bringing
a
nothing to the table.
Minimal amount of work, but maximum charm.
Well, if you had a drink every time there were nothing, you'd be bladdered. So that's a good game, innit? That's a good one.
Yeah,
Kind of like that. I think that's just being an alcoholic,
Well, absolutely. Christmas, though, everyone's an alcoholic, surely. That's just the whole point of Christmas.
That's it. Even
isn't that really the true spirit?
Yeah. Literally the true spirit of Christmas. Here a week, try the veal. Actually, don't try veal, veal's evil.
What's your favourites?
What, favourite spirit?
Yeah.
Ooh, probably rum.
Yeah, I'm going to go for spiced rum.
Not spice. What about you?
Water.
Because you're a dog. And you can't...
Because I'm a dog. I can't drink. I would die.
I know there's certain animals that just eat like rotting apples on purpose to get drunk off of the
fermenting.
Fermenting apples. Have you done that before?
I don't know about that, but I am partial to a bit of slipper biting, and it makes me a bit lightheaded when I stand up.
And would you like a bit of chocolate?
That's the one I give to the family when I want a bit of quiet time. They had their stomachs pumped last week, so I left out a box of celebrations.
Not much celebrating has happened on that day in your house, then.
I did. I mean, that meant I could hook up the Wii to the big telly.
Yeah, fair play.
What a depressing life you live.
And so I think that nicely ties up the socials. Just remember to like and...
We haven't mentioned our socials at all yet.
Well, we did, because that's the whole point of this thing. Go on our Instagram and follow us. So actually you can answer these bloody questions that we put out every fucking week. And, well, we do get answers most weeks. But
from me.
Yeah, usually it is from Mr. Dogbrain videos.
And because I'm here, you ain't got none, have you?
Well, exactly. But you are here to present your answer in person, which is even better.
That is. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
And don't forget to go on Dogbrain videos and like and subscribe to his YouTubes.
And we are Untitled Film Podcast, one word, on Facebook and Instagram.
And what is your Instagram handle?
I don't remember. No, Dogbrain_videos. There you go.
Good. So
my name isn't Dogbrain_videos. That's just the handle.
Right, okay.
We're making this needlessly complicated, I think.
So what's your name again?
Well, Mr. Dogbrain Videos, no underscore middle name.
I feel like this is almost as like complicated as the name of our podcast.
Yes, we really did pick a great one with Untitled.
Can you remember what the full name of our podcast is?
Callum.
That's one name. It's one. I think that's one word out of about 8.
Yeah.
Callum and Johnny do a talking.
That's basically what I call it every week.
Close enough.
Or 2 Johnnies sometimes.
To be honest, I've given up fighting this.
Robert Johnny's radio show.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
So I think that brings us nicely to the news. I think guests should go first. So as the guest, what are you thinking what's your piece of news, Mr. Dogbrain Video?
Well, I've been watching it from the start and it's quite sad. The Walking Dead has come to an end. So that's, it's not really news, but I just wanted to say it was what a ride. And it got pretty shitty. But we got the spin-offs coming and there's been a bit of news on that.
So how many seasons did it go for?
11 and a half.
That's quite a lot.
Bloody hell.
I'm not surprised it got a bit shit.
It was good at the start. Rick was a good man. And there was a dog character near the end called Dog, but then he got forgotten about. And that's what happens in The Walking Dead. They introduce a new character, right? And they're like all interesting. And then they just disappear and you don't know what happens.
Was it Stephen Yen? He was in it, wasn't he?
Yes, he got his head smashed in.
Did he? Okay. Doesn't that's what happens to everyone? Don't they all get bitten and then turn into a zombie and get their head smashed in eventually?
A few of them, but it's just that one had his eyeball. That was a grotesque death.
Okay. That's what the show's about.
And that show's quite good at sort of kickstarting a bunch of careers. Like Andrew Lincoln was famous in England, but no one knew him in America other than the guy from Love Actually. So that gave him his big career. Stephen Yeun is now an Oscar nominee. And there's a bunch of people who got their big kind of American push.
It was quite interesting in that it was a show that... So I remember AMC was trying to become like the new HBO. And it was... They first did Mad Men, excellent. Then Breaking Bad. And then they did Walking Dead and a couple of other shows that got forgotten pretty quickly. Yeah, exactly. Forgotten quickly. 3 stars in The Guardian, and they kind of did all this, and then they've kind of lost because they've also like there are obviously the spin-off of of Breaking Bad was Better Call Saul, and that's just finished as well. So they've kind of run out of all these like Halo shows anymore. They've not kind of, obviously with HBO, they seem to be quite, they'll throw a ton of things at the wall and see what sticks, but they've managed to get Game of Thrones and now House of Dragons from that, and they've had quite a few other successful shows in the last few years, but I don't think AMC really has got, other than the spin-offs of those.
They seem to have a peak, and that has crested now.
Yeah, because they have literally like 3 really good Halo shows all going at once, and then not Halo the movie, not Halo the TV.
I know what you mean.
That's awful. Yeah, but you might, but others might not. But anyway, so yeah, interesting piece of news. A big piece of history that it's ended, but probably 5 seasons too late.
Oh yeah, and they've got the spin-offs coming. They've got one called Walking Dead: Dead City, where the man that bashed in Glenn's head is now having it off with Glenn's wife, and they go to New York and they bash your heads together.
Do you remember? I'm fairly sure like Aaron Paul used to host a show after The Walking Dead called like
Talking Dead, I think. It's called.
Talking Dead, and he used to talk about Walking Dead for half an hour after every episode.
It's not Aaron Paul, but he looks a bit like him.
I think it's the guy that used to host the Nerdist podcast.
He got done for sexual harassment.
Yeah, he did.
But then he
came
was
back.
undone for it, though, wasn't he? They kind of like.
I don't know what you mean. I didn't keep it up.
They paid her off. They paid her off.
What's his name? I know who
Chris
you mean.
Hardwick.
Yeah,
That's the one. Yes, yeah.
I remember. But there was a few because they did one after Breaking Bad, and they all had like big people in. And I remember this being a big thing. And they were like, "Oh, we've got a good show. I know. How do we spend like $2 million an episode? I know. We can get an extra half an hour of TV out of putting some people in a room and talking about it.
And they would
afterwards."
have guests like Kevin Smith and all the kind of famous Hollywood nerds.
And then that span off into that Kevin Smith.
The comic book men.
Yeah, which was like 3 or 4 of the odious, creepiest
It was
knobs.
really horrible.
It really was. Like Kevin Smith would turn up and be like really nice, and then all his friends are like really nasty people. But yeah, we've gone on a slight tangent
That
there.
was a slight tangent, but it was fun nonetheless.
Yes, absolutely.
Let The Walking Dead die with itself.
But let's hope the spin-offs are good. Let's hope. Callum, what is your piece of news for the week?
Something quite silly, quite funny, a bit cringy as well. Antonio Banderas was recently asked, who would you like to play Zorro in a Zorro movie now that you're long in the tooth, grey-haired, over the hill? Because at one point, Jonas Cuarón, the son of Alfonso Cuarón, was going to make one with Gael Garcia Bernal, and that didn't happen. And so he was recently asked in an interview, who do you want to play Zorro? Who do you think he chose? Do you think he chose some great Mexican up-and-comer, Spanish, Hispanic actor, you know, what Zorro is because he's Spanish? Or do you think he chose Tom Holland from the Spider-Man movies?
Well, by the pointedness of your question, it sounds like he chose Tom Holland.
I mean,
Fucking hell.
I know. I mean, good lord.
I mean, he's quite good at his stunts, I suppose.
He's good at the stunts, but can you imagine the whiny little prat being Spanish and going, "See, I am Zorro." I mean,
Well, you
good
can't.
lord.
He couldn't do the act. Surely he'd have to just play it like not with an accent because that
And they'd
would,
have to
like,
find
it's not
some
okay.
weird route where this not Spanish actor,
British sounding,
or
talking
maybe
about
American
colonization.
accent. Yeah, maybe he does an American accent talking about the people of Spain should be free. Ugh, from you though, ugh, gross.
I mean, he was in the Uncharted. Not that I've seen it, but the Uncharted movie playing the lead character. He was like, why have you picked someone who's 4 foot high and looks like a 19-year-old
Like a
to
thumb.
play?
I started watching that the other day and I turned it off halfway through.
Yeah.
It were bad.
I haven't even bothered, but it just didn't look like he just miscast. I think just because he's famous and just because he can do his own stunts doesn't mean he should be in everything.
That's it, and it's because Antonio Banderas plays the baddie in Uncharted. I think he was just being a bit silly.
Yeah,
if I'm being honest, I'm hoping he was being a bit silly.
Do you know what it makes it? He kind of reminds me of like in the way that he does his own stunts, and he's quite short. A kind of modern day Tom Cruise, and it would like having Tom Cruise play Zorro 30 years ago, and it would have just been so wrong.
I'm sure some studio has put that forward.
Yeah, and it would
What
have been
about
wrong.
Tom Cruise as Zorro?
But that would be Zorro.
Boo.
Boo earns. Right, but yeah, no, interesting.
And of course, you have a piece of news today?
I do have a piece of news. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is apparently going to have 6 different art styles in it. I said this piece of news because I know that everyone around this table is a big fan of whatever the first one was called. The names are too similar. I'm just going to put this out there.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse. Across the Spider-Verse. It's too similar. They need to differentiate the names more.
I was
it
wondering
me.
if that was a reference to the Beatles song. across the universe.
Yeah, maybe.
And I imagine they'll
Or-
play that song at some point.
Or the Justice movie about Justice touring America.
Probably not.
I think it's that one. Anyway, but yeah, but it apparently it's got 6 different art styles. It's been delayed. It was meant to come out this year, I think, about now, but it's going to come out next year now, and really exciting. The trailers look absolutely stunning, and I've just got this feeling they're going to try and go even a step further than the amazing animation in the first one.
I think so too.
I think they're going to go real life and bring over some real ones.
Yeah,
Lots of
possibly.
Holland and that.
They do love a bit of metaversy. It would make sense. It kind of would make sense to have, even if it was just a cartoon version of Tom Holland, but Tom Holland voicing one of them.
Yeah.
I also thought that I was mildly disappointed in one aspect for the Doctor Strange movie. It's when he's flying through all the multiverses, and it looks really interesting. There's a paint one. There's one where he's
Yeah,
splitting
why
in
is there
half.
not a Spider-Verse one?
And then the one he lands in is one where it's like, oh, in this universe, the traffic lights green means the cars stop instead of go. It's like you could have chose anything.
What's
and you chose
green?
This. Oh, yeah, sorry. Dogs are colorblind. So these are different colors.
What's the colour?
Might be a bit complicated to explain this. So,
Go on. Please try and explain to me a colour.
Is your favourite film Casablanca?
What's a Casablanca?
so in your world, everything is sort of a beigey, black and white mush.
What's black? What's
Oh,
beige?
Jesus Christ.
Do you know? This is hard.
Jesus Christ.
Explain it to me properly.
What colour are your eyes?
I don't know. I've never thought about it. Go on, try your hardest to explain to me what a colour is.
I'm so looking forward to inviting you.
You know things have different shades.
What's a shade?
You know when you look at something, everything looks
yeah,
a bit
I know that.
different.
Some things are lighter, some
Like
things are
you
darker.
go to pick some things up and it looks different to other things.
Oh yeah, okay. Things looking different. I can follow.
Yeah. So there's a thing that you can't see where things look even more different.
Oh, that's just sad, isn't it?
So when you look at something where you just see one or two different versions of one or two things, or two things really, we see lots of things.
Okay, I'm with you now. I'm with you.
I think I've done a really good job of
I think you did a
explaining
pretty good
colour.
job, yeah, and did the best job you could, I think.
Wait until I describe what sniffing's like. Have you ever smelt like imagine like a bit of grass, like a blade of grass. You just look at it and think it's a blade of grass, but to me, that smells like a pine forest.
Wow.
I have to apologise, listeners, to this
What's the difference?
unairable waffle.
What's the difference between a pine forest and a blade of grass? So what does a pine forest? If a blade of grass smells like a pine forest, what does a pine forest smell like?
Is this a joke? Are you telling a joke? What's the punchline?
Punchline is this episode, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
No, everything's great. It smells lovely.
Everything's wonderful.
So anyway, excited for Into the Spider-Verse. Let's try and get back on track.
Spiders smell quite nice as well.
Shut up.
What colour is a spider?
Mostly black,
Black, yeah, you probably can see that fine.
bits of red.
Depends
every
on the
so
spider.
often.
If a spider's got lots of colours on it, don't go near it. That's my advice. But you won't know. You'll just bite it and
I'll
get
just
killed.
eat it. Yeah, that's right. I've eaten many a spider. Anyway, back on track.
You be careful in Australia. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
But yes, let's get back on track.
This is what regret feels like.
So the first movie that
Yes.
we looked at was a really high bar of movies, one of the best Christmas movies of all time.
All time.
Callum, can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so it's Falling for Christmas, which is the new Netflix Lindsay Lohan Christmas film. It's very much based around the Hallmark template of Christmas films. It's about a rich socialite who inevitably falls over a bunch of times. There's lots of physical comedy in this film. And at one point...
Who inevitably falls over lots of
inevitably
times.
falls over lots of times, bumps her head after a particularly nasty tumble down a ski slope. It's set in the kind of Utah areas, lots of ski slopes, lots of skiing holiday sort of thing. She falls over and she gets amnesia, and she is taken to this kind of rustic ski lodge run by a man with a beard and slightly scruffy hair, but not really.
A bit like me.
A bit like you, yeah. Much more
Almost
attractive.
as handsome.
Yes, rather. And wouldn't you know it, they start falling in love, you know. But in her original life, there's a fiance who is still in the picture. And Is she going to remember who she is? Will the fiancé come back and find her? Will true love run its course? These are all the questions that you already know the answer to if you've seen or even heard of a Hallmark movie. You know exactly what this movie is if you are any familiar with these kinds of movies at all.
Yeah, fair enough. And I'm going to pass it over first to our guest to tell us what he thought of this movie.
So what I've got here, I've got like a list. I was writing things down. It's hard to write with pause, but I've stuck it in my mouth, right? And I've got some notes. I've got 24 points here, and I wrote them. I wrote them in order, and I'll read out what I thought of it. So it's like rewatching the film. As we go down it, you can tell me what you think of it.
Right.
And it'll kind of unravel the storyline.
Normally, we don't spoil new movies, but I think that anyone who has ever seen a movie, ever, can probably guess what happens at the beginning, middle, and end of this movie. So I don't think it matters if we spoil it.
There's an entire factory of these films, and they're not always on Netflix, but Netflix is starting to get into the Hallmark Christmas game. They have done for a few years now.
They did one last year called A Castle for Christmas. Who was in it? Someone big was in it as well.
Vanessa Hudgens is in those Christmas Prince movies. They're all the same.
Yeah.
They all follow the same track. So you know these movies.
So
we're not going to worry about it.
We're not going to worry about ruining it this week. So just to warn you, if you really are desperate to see, I was going to say Castle for Christmas, whatever this one's called, Falling for Christmas. If you notice the pun in the name, because she falls over a lot and knocks her head. You've seen it. If you're really that desperate, skip this bit. But I've got a feeling you're not going to watch it. So
or care.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, dog. Go ahead, Brain.
We'll probably see Tom Holland in one in like 30 years when he's had his fill of actions.
When he becomes unhireable after doing something problematic.
Yeah,
that's the one.
After the photos of him snorting coke off of a prostitute's breasts or something comes out.
Falling in love with a much taller woman. Right, okay, so, number one. Why does the old film look like it's stock footage?
It does. Yeah, it looks like that kind of, it's got that real like stock footage vibe of anyone who's ever like gone to work and had to watch one of those videos that's like people sat around a desk chatting don't sexually harass that person. It has the vibe of a sexual harassment workplace what's it called? HR video. Go ahead.
I've written these down exactly as my thoughts happened, so some of them might not be structured together, like, your normal sentences. But the second one is, I have written, unlikable character, a piece of shit, much exposition dialogue.
I feel like you need to clarify which is the horrible character.
Are we talking about Lindsay Lohan?
I see.
Or the rustic lodge owner?
Or the current boyfriend?
Yeah, the fiancé.
That'll feed into some answers later.
Okay.
But in this specific example, the unlikable character is Lindsay Lohan herself. Because she's just like an influencer and she's treating everyone like shit. And I weren't rooting for her at all.
No, it's true. I saw someone post about this movie and who's actually quite excited about Lindsay Lohan's big comeback because, people like her, or liked her at least in the early 2000s. And they were saying that she's really miscast. She's not the right person for fluffy rom-coms. She's too world-weary and too sort of like life has beaten this person down. She should have a Robert Downey Jr.-esque sort of gruff comeback, not a fluffy comeback like this. And it's poor casting and poor character.
Okay.
I agree. There's some weird camera angles going on here. Because it looks so much like stock footage, anytime they try something new, it looks weird. Like there's a scene where there's a man skiing down a slope, and then it cuts the GoPro footage, and it's just weird. There's no need.
I'd also like to say there is some of, I don't know if you could even call it CGI, but some of the worst visual effects I've ever seen anything like.
Really bad green screen.
Particularly when she's like falling off of the bit where she falls over and goes unconscious. There's this bit with her going like, whoa, what? You can't see what I'm doing because it's a podcast, but kind of like flailing her arms around.
He's flapping.
Yeah, and it looks, basically, you can just see green glowing around her arms. She looks like a superhero.
It's really rough.
Yeah. Continue.
It's like jelly around her, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, so this one, I spotted with my keen eye, and there's a scene, right, where the love interest is going down an hallway and he's got a cup of cocoa and it's clearly foam and he's like spinning around in that and it's just a bit of foam in it. And I went on IMDb to look up the trivia after and that was a bit of trivia. You can clearly see the form.
Funnily enough, so those of you that know Rick and Morty and Community know Dan Harmon. He has a really funny Instagram. And last year, him and his wife got really into watching like really, really bad Hallmark Christmas movies. And there was a scene where like they were bosses at the end, walking around like they were at a party at the end of the Hallmark movie, and like, well done, you've saved Christmas for the company or something. And everyone have Christmas eggnog, and gives out this eggnog, and it looks, I mean, I've never drunk eggnog because we're British and we don't really have eggnog, but I've seen eggnog, I know what it looks like, and it looked like a cappuccino or something. There was no way in hell this is an eggnog. And I feel like if your movie has Christmas in the title, anything to do with Christmas should have a base understanding of what Christmas things look like. So if you're walking around with a hot steaming hot chocolate or whatever it's meant to be, it should look like Christmassy hot chocolate. Like, it can't just look like a piece of foam in a cup.
Especially
like,
since
get the Christmas details right. It's a fucking Christmas movie.
Especially since a lot of the plot point revolves around that interaction, in that bump, in that sort of spill. Get it right. It's the point of the movie. This is the meet cute of the movie.
I know. If you can't get this basicness right, then don't make a fucking Christmas movie.
Don't bother.
But he spins around. There's like all these people, and he's holding this cup of cocoa, and it don't spill anywhere. And it only spills when he knocks into her, and that's the first interaction they have. Anyway, next one. The dickheads are perfect for each other. Already? Question mark. Now here, I'm referring to the main one. So Lindsay Lohan's character and her fiance, they're horrible people and they belong together. There's no love story here. They've already got each other. I don't get it. The film was done.
It's tough making a film around a character where the whole arc is they're horrible. Will they become nice? Yeah. You really have to work at putting a little redeeming feature in first, so you're not kind of actively rooting against her. You need to have a grain, I think.
I felt like they tried to do that horrendously badly, but
with the mother,
with the mother storyline,
flashback to the mother who died.
She was quite nice to her dad, I suppose, for 10 seconds. And she was already kind of questioning whether she should take the job. Is it a made-up job? But the influencer boyfriend guy had zero redeeming features, and terrible taste. This is the thing that I find really funny about like rich people in all these movies as well. They literally have zero taste and all this money, and it's like they're talking about, oh yeah, my haute couture outfit. Your outfit looks like it's from the Middle Island Lidl, like it's like a bright pink.
It's because
stupid
they're writing
pink.
Oh, stop it. It's because they have a cheap Netflix budget to make rich person costumes.
It's true. I mean, that does answer the question, but it's just like, fuck's sake, if you're gonna do it, it looks like something out of High School Musical or something. It's like, fucking hell.
Well, that leads me into the next point as well. I've written here, the things that make this couple incompatible are super trivial and pathetic. She gets annoyed at him for changing the song on the radio, and she also gets annoyed that the ring's too big for her hand, and she complains that it's too big. And but they get on other than that. I
would just like to circle back to the change in the radio. That is a Mean Girls reference.
Oh, I thought I'd seen it before.
No, it's the Jingle Bell, Jingle Bell, Jingle. And she's like, I love this song. Her character said, and that's a reference to obviously the very famous scene in Mean Girls. Well, I assume it is.
But for your common dog like me, it made no sense. And I thought when he changed the song on the radio, he would be in really fun, and I would have had a great time in that car. I can't stand up in cars, but that would have been all right.
Do you like putting your head out the window in a car?
Oh, it's so good, right? It's so good. Once I was putting my head out the window, right, and a bee flew in my mouth. It was an emergency. We had to go to like dog A&E, but it was a fun ride.
Did you get like that swelled up face like dogs get when they bite a bee?
Yeah, but my owner gave me like loads of ice cream and that. God rest her soul.
So you have an owner? I thought you had a wife.
Well, before that, like, you know, I was bred and I had an owner for a week.
You were bred like you eat bread?
I was in a womb and I was baked like bread. It weren't actually like bread, but, you know, like breed, sex, shagging, babies.
Right.
So I had an order.
The world building of the Dogbrain videos universe is needlessly complicated. I just want to point that out.
Well, we're covering lots of lore here, you know, the video family lineage I feel like where I came from.
Making up lore is maybe the word.
On the spot.
Well, isn't all lore made up?
well, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good answer.
I mean, Star Wars weren't a true story, was it? Or was it?
Oh, maybe.
Who knows? I have to ask George Lucas.
It rhymes. It's like couplets and rhymes. Have you seen that viral video where he's struggling to direct the Phantom Menace? It's like the first scene. It's like the last scene. It's like couplets. They rhyme.
I just like the one where they're doing a screening of it and he turns around and just goes, I think we went too far. Even he's realised that, oh God, what have we done? Anyway, go on. We're three points into your 487-point plan.
The first 4-hour podcast.
I've written, I don't want her to find love. I like that she got hurt.
Got her what?
Got hurt. Got hurt. Smashed her head into a tree. I liked it because I didn't like her.
That's fair enough. Were you hoping she'd maybe died?
No, but I weren't expecting amnesia, which is the next point, which is just OMG amnesia. I weren't expecting that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most cliched of all these things. Also, when you point out that I didn't want her to find love, in all these movies, there's always a rustic guy who runs a cabin, runs a lodge, owns a cheese shop.
I'm surprised he didn't have like an axe. He'd just been like cutting a tree and then in slow motion he puts the axe over his shoulder.
And he's like the only guy in town with a little bit of chest hair, but his beard is still sculpted so much.
Yeah.
He used to be on Glee, that actor. So how have the mighty fallen? But he is so bland.
He's not he's not like what is there about him? I didn't
well, quite.
get it.
I mean,
He
I
just
wanted
has
him to
zero
be
personality.
it's always the same. You're like,
He's the world's nicest person, but with zero personality, and also no business sense. I'm just going to put this out at the end of the movie. I'm just going to really cut to the end of the movie. The end of the movie, he's this is a story point all the way through the movie.
Stop hitting your microphone.
This is the whole way through the movie. He's supposed to be trying to save his business, and he is a terrible business person.
It's
because
really
what
bad.
it turns out is that what he's been doing is every time there should have been an opportunity for his lodge to make money over the last 10 years, he's done the opposite and actually spent money. So someone had their wedding there and he didn't charge them, and he bought all the champagne and all the food and didn't charge them.
Don't you see? He's a super nice guy. He's the nicest guy.
Like, it's fair enough. Like, it's your mate. Give him a discount. Do it at cost price, but don't lose. Like, I mean, what does a wedding cost? Like 10 grand, probably more. Like, don't lose 20,000. And then he's go, oh, we're gonna have to shut the thing down. Well, duh! You've just given away all your profit for the last 20 years.
But he's so nice. He's got the sculpted beard and a little bit of chest hair,
and the chubby little cheeks as well.
But you can't help, and you can't help anyone if your business shuts down.
But he's the nicest
it's
guy.
Like being
Don't
like,
you understand?
I run a charity, but we've spent all the money on the first day, so we're now closing and can't help anyone ever again.
Do you not understand that he's the nicest guy evs?
No, I don't. He doesn't even come across as that nice. He just comes across as a bad actor.
A bit passive aggressive, actually.
There's a moment later on as well when there's a lady trying to explain to the Lindsay Lohan that he gives money to charity and he's broke.
What a loser,
man! What a film. Anyway, we're on point 2.
Jesus Christ.
I'm gonna go make him a cup of coffee.
The fiance is the best character in the film.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would agree with that. You're the IMDb guy. Have you looked up his acting credits? Has he been in things before?
Yes, actually. Last year, did any of you watch the horror film *Malignant*?
No.
Which became a bit of a meme because should I spoil *Malignant* for people? So it's about a woman.
I want to see it. No, I don't want it. I don't want the spoiler.
I feel like it's not a spoiler part of the podcast.
It became every
he
so
in it anyway?
He was, and he was the detective, and he had a risible American accent.
I think the thing is, I always love in any film a character that is ridiculously camply overacting.
Yes, me too.
And he does it really well. Like, he is very hateable. He's funny. He has some really good lines. He delivers them quite well.
But the actor
he's kind of got like a camp evilness about him. And whereas everyone else feels like they're not even, they don't feel like they're acting in the same movie. He got the assignment. He got, this is a ridiculous, stupid movie. My character's a ridiculous, stupid human. I will be a ridiculous, stupid human.
I actually quite liked his subplot where because they both fall off this mountain and they get separated, and he finds sanctuary at like this rustic, cabin in the woods where there's this kind of bearded guy who's like, he hunts and stuff like that, and they seem to get on quite well. And I actually kind of was quite invested in this two nice people.
They were lovely.
Yeah, it was. It was really sweet.
And I did also feel like they almost kept forgetting about that plot line as well. And I was like, no, go back to that.
Yeah.
Because you're just repeating the same things over and over again in this like unrealistic love story.
And it ends half an hour before the end of the film, that plot line. So it's like the best part of the film is not going to be, he's not going to be there, the rustic cabin in the woods guy, for the whole rest of the film. And he was like him and getting together like, I like to fish and I like to hunt. He gives him an axe. What do I do with this? Throw it at a squirrel. And it's like, I like this pair. There's also something about physical comedy I really like. It doesn't matter how poorly performed it is. If someone falls over or gets a fishing lure in the head, which he did, or slips on something, I laugh. I don't care how bad it is, I laugh.
I'd also like to give him a little bit of a modicum, or like he's a horrendous vapid person, but he doesn't like seem to be horrible to the Lindsay Lohan character. Like he doesn't seem, in those films, like normally they'd be cheating on the side or doing something weird. They haven't given him that. He's just like a idiot.
Just changes the song on the radio.
Yeah.
What an asshole!
Yeah. What
He
a
doesn't want to
monster.
listen to a Christmas song in a movie that was filmed in July. How dare he?
How dare he?
I think that they actually changed the ending really, because they were sort of setting up a love story between like him and this guy. Like there's a bit where he falls over and he gives him his snowshoes and he's like, "Don't worry, I got big feet," and he goes, "Ooh," and he like pulls him up, and then at the end he ends up with a man. But it's not that man. It's like just some random man that's Lindsay Lohan's assistant.
Yeah.
I reckon he should have gone off in the sunset with him.
Yeah, it would have made a lot more sense.
A lot more sense. They had chemistry. They had the only laughs in the movie. Their subplot was really quite lovely. I would have really liked to see him. And it would have been a nice contrast to him going away with this big bear of a guy.
Yeah. It also kind of made sense, just in general, like the whole... He was quite I'm not equating being camp to being gay, but he was quite a camp character, so it kind of made sense that he was bi as well. And I quite like that little, it's been a bit of inclusion in movies.
Yeah.
A bit of just normal. It was very normal. He wasn't signposted. He wasn't done anything.
It would have changed the stereotype a bit for have him go off with a big
exactly. I think it would have worked
better.
better. Like, if you're going to do that with that character, it wouldn't have felt a bit tacked on like it did.
Yeah, he ends up with the man at the end, and it's almost like a punchline that he's suddenly gay, and he leans forward and like winks or something, and it's not, he should have ended up with
it
a
would have made
bear.
a lot more sense of his character and made the film a lot more. Biting is not the word. I was going to say a bit more biting, but I don't. I mean, there's fairly the most toothless film of all time. Like it was never going to have a bite to it, but maybe it would have made some more sense.
Very poorly handled.
Yeah, I like the idea, but poorly handled. Yeah.
Anyway, so the next one ain't really about the film, but I've just written down here, I had to stop to play Super Smash Brothers. The film was paused for 3 hours.
I'm not sure if that's relevant to anything.
I know, I was just like, I think it just turned into a bit of a diary.
So how do you play Smash Brothers if you don't have thumbs? Because you did mention earlier that you didn't have thumbs.
Nephew plays it for me, really.
Does he have thumbs then?
No, he's a bright lad. He's made like a robot hands, and he just plays games with his robot hands.
Okay.
Just made out of connects and motors.
We're just complicating this
Yeah,
more and more.
cut this law out.
Keep this in, Rob.
Yeah, keep this in. And also, I think we need to speed this along a bit because we've been reviewing this for quite a long time.
Let me do 3 of them, and you can reply to your
This is
favourite
going
one.
to be a long episode, folks. But some people like that kind of thing.
We've got
First 2-hour episode.
right. There's a few left. I'll condense it. 1. Why is the mistletoe red? 2. This film makes me feel sick.
Why? Why does it make you feel sick?
What have I written here? Why did it make me feel sick? Oh, here we go. The film makes me feel sick, but it does make me feel very Christmassy. And then I've got another one here, which is sort of like a continuity error or crew error behind the scenes sort of thing. There's a shot where it's snowing and the snow machine only fills up one half of the frame.
I didn't notice that.
It's dead funny.
I would be a liar if I said I was paying full attention when I was
same.
watching it, though. But yeah.
Same.
Anyway, what one do you want to talk about? Why is the mistletoe red? Or why does the snow fill up after the screen? Or why did it make me feel sick?
I think why does it make you feel sick? Because
Yeah,
the
I
other two
wanted
are just things
They're
you've
nitpicks,
noticed.
but-
So why does it make you feel sick?
It just made me feel sick.
Well, fair enough. I mean, I guess these films, they have a certain
Was it
sort
too
of...
sweet?
It was the, I
Or was
reckon.
it
sickly.
It was, sickly. Like when you have like a really sweet lolly and you can only eat some of it, I think it was the love interest man, the cabin boy. He kept trying to do this sort of like steamy, sort of
He was incredibly miscast.
It was very bad. It was like he was like trying to do these handsome faces where you like squint and bite your lip, and his hair was flopping about, and it was just weird. And I didn't like him. He made me feel. His face made me feel sick.
He probably just isn't. I don't want to say he's not handsome enough, because he's obviously a handsome person, but he just didn't have that in that role. When you normally have that person, they're always maybe a little bit more
chisels.
Yeah, a bit more, but maybe just a bit more vapid. Like, I tell you a really good example of that. I think who would have been, I mean, he's 10 years too old now, but who'd have been good in that role? The guy from Tron Legacy.
Oh, yes.
They should have zero about them. They should be nothing people, but very handsome and they work. Because the idea is that you can project what you want from a man on that role. That's my assumption. That's what, like, to make those films work in my head, you have to be able to, you know, and the same with you have a the kind of reverse osmosis film for men as opposed to women. It'd be the same thing. The female character has to be, you can project what you want from a woman on that person. Whereas actually I feel like probably like with Glee, there was always a bit of weird, surreal Ryan Murphy bite to those things. And he probably as an actor has that a little bit to him. And that probably, you know, almost like he was trying too hard. He was overacting, where he should have basically just been a model.
Yeah. I think both of the leads were incredibly miscast. It's not that I'm not wanting Lindsay Lohan to come back, because of course I liked her in the early 2000s, as we all did. She was a very good teen star, and I'd be happy for her to come back in some way. I just think that this kind of role, she's the wrong fit for this kind of super sickly. It needs to be one of those ex-sitcom stars that are now super conservative Christians and talk about how we should all feel ashamed for having abortions. Like
Melissa Joan Hart would have been perfect.
Like that,
who I think might have been in Castle. I might be making this up, but it might have been her that was in Castle.
Or one of the women from Full House, teenagers then, adults now. It needs to be someone who is just white bread. Blonde, white bread, big eyes.
I think, like you say, those eyes have seen too much.
Yeah.
And I think she kind of like as a character, as an actress, actually probably has something to give.
I think
now.
So. I do.
She always had, like, Mean Girls. There's a bit of something behind her in that film, and she's probably a better actress than she deserves, than this film deserves. And I think that maybe detracts from it a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I think if someone gave her like a Robert Downey Jr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang sort of thing, a gruff, weird indie film, I think she might do pretty well.
I also think, and this is a problem that can happen in Hollywood, and it happened to Mickey Rourke and stuff as well. Obviously, Hollywood is horrendously ageist, and there's a massive problem with that. And obviously, because of that, and it particularly is worse for women just, have really to keep looking young, because they only write roles for people up to the age of about 25 or 90 and nothing in between.
Yes, yeah, true.
People tend to have a bit of plastic surgery. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes it goes a couple of steps too far. And from an acting point of view, it can be a struggle, because it means people struggle to emote. And it happened with Mickey Rourke for a good period of time, until then he went boxing again and became even more gruff. Yeah. And it kind of unfortunately happened to like Renee Zellweger a bit when she's come back, where there's been, I don't know if it's both, I don't understand plastic surgery, but unfortunately she doesn't have the full range of expressions in her face, and that might work in some scenarios, but it didn't really work in this kind of film.
In this sort of super chirpy
sort of film. It just didn't seem quite right.
Well, try having no fucking muscles in your face.
Well,
I was born like that.
Yeah, you have one expression. Perpetually worried.
Yeah, I've heard this all throughout my life. I look worried, but sometimes I'm having lots of fun.
You're having a blast. You're having a ball.
I've turned it into like a little joke. Don't worry, I'm having a great time. Anyway, ending on a bit of trivia for that film. At the end, when they kiss in front of the tree, they had to put a digital lens flare in, because it was actually Lindsay Lohan's stunt double.
Oh, wow.
Why?
Because she didn't want to kiss the fishy-faced, chubby-cheeked man.
Wow. I mean, she's obviously still got good agents then, who can get that kind of thing written into a contract. Like, as a comeback film, you kind of think, well, you have to do anything they ask, but clearly not.
Did anyone notice how the Santa in this film looked like a serial killer?
Fucking hell, the Santa. I forgot about him. Jesus Christ. I've actually got here. Worst Father Christmas in any Christmas film I've ever seen, ever.
I think what you need is out the back.
He's a fucking... Don't get me started. Greasy Santa.
Yeah.
Who touches his nose and does that little thing where he taps it. Anyway.
So this is an interesting point. In the first half of the movie, I was fully ready to go into like full-on Mark Commodian anti-consumerism-esque rant about how horrible these people are and blah, blah, blah. But actually it did try to be like, no, the nice people are the people that don't have the money. And I kind of thought, I'll give it a little bit of it. I'll give it a sprinkling of it.
It did
even in, like,
attempt it, yeah.
Because I think you find even in, you know, a lot of kind of Christmas movies and stuff in America, everyone is like Home Alone and like, what did the Bannister family, is it this the Bannisters, isn't it? What did the Bannister family do to have that giant mansion? McAllister even. What did they do to have that giant, like, take 9 children to Paris for Christmas and have that giant mansion? And even like the next one, like Jingle All the Way, a beautiful house with all these Christmas lights and things. Whereas actually on this, it was, you know, the struggling business owner. He was the good guy, even if he was played by the completely miscast wrong person.
Yeah.
So I will give it a sprinkling of realisticness.
It certainly didn't offend me or anything.
It was probably just the budget. They couldn't afford to film in any of those places. So they found a log cabin and gave him like an Airbnb rate for a week and just blasted through
I did
it.
find it funny that she's complaining about this log cabin not being up to her standards. And yet it's the most beautiful log cabin bed and breakfast hotel in the world.
Yeah, I'd love to be there
Netflix
for
in a
Christmas.
room and animals frolicking outside the window. So what's your problem?
That was the other thing. Like, it was trying to be a bit meta in that the thing that woke her up out of her coma or out of a long sleep when she first got to this hotel was the Netflix going dum, and then on the screen was A Castle for Christmas. I was like, how? Like, oh, okay, mate. I think it was the same director possibly or some producers, but it had that on the screen, and I was like, that's a bit meta for this pile of shit of a movie.
Yeah. It's probably not meta. It's probably just an attempt at advertising. Like, after this, you might like.
And speaking of advertising, that's the perfect time for our commercial break. Hello and welcome back to our Christmas episode with Dogbrain Videos.
Hello.
So we've first off been talking about Falling for Christmas with Lindsay Lohan. We're now going to be moving on to talking about the film that Dogbrain Videos drinking game is based off of, which is Jingle All the Way.
And I have 57 points to make.
So this is going to be the first podcast ever in history that's 24 hours long.
So strap in. But I will quickly first, before we move over to those points, tell you about Jingle All the Way. So Jingle All the Way is from 1996. It stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sinbad, and I forgot his name. It's really bad. Phil Hartman. And also, I was going to say Rita Perlman, but it's not Rita Perlman.
This is not going well.
No, it's not going well. What's her name?
I'm not going to tell you.
What's your job?
I don't have my
You can't
phone ready.
remember, can you?
No, I can't.
It's Rita Wilson.
Rita Wilson, yes.
Rita Wilson. Sorry. Yes, so it stars those people in a Christmas classic, some would say. Pretty maligned by critics at the time, but actually I quite like it. It's that one of those high concept Arnold Schwarzenegger movies that he loved doing in the mid-90s, and it is about a dad who works hard for his family so they can afford this giant mansion, as I previously mentioned, as everyone in American Christmas movies seems to have. But in his need to work very hard for his family, he is never there. He doesn't go to little, what's the kid's name?
Jimmy.
Doesn't go to little Jamie's karate event.
Yeah,
thing?
it's karate. He misses his purple belt acceptance.
But is it, what do you call it? Is it it's not a recital because that's
It's
like
just tournament. They called it karate tournament, and then when they
It's
show it ain't one.
tournament to move on to the next grade.
because as we know, everyone in America in the late 80s and early 90s did karate because of the Karate Kid. And yeah, so he was doing that. And he missed that and gets stopped by a cop. And yeah, and stuff. Hilarity ensues. All the time, Phil Hartman's next door neighbour is trying to move in on his missus and slide into her DMs before DMs were a thing. And he needs to make it up to little Jamie. So he says, Jamie, what is the one thing you want for Christmas? And he says, a Turbo Man with the rocking, blah, 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 and 50 voices and things. The kind of things that kids wanted in the 90s before video games got big and before they wanted Nintendo Switches instead. And every single year there would be a thing that used to sell out. Tickle Me Elmo, Cabbage Patch Kids, and people would literally fight each other for them. And this is a movie about Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to track down one of these things. and along the way, bumping into Sinbad, playing a mailman who has the same problem. It's the busiest time of year for him. He's a mailman. He's got to deliver all these bullshit letters, and he can't do it. And him and Sinbad chase around town trying to get this toy for their children, and hilarity ensues.
Well, you took us on a long ride there.
That were a very long back of the DVD case if you were to read it.
But I feel like a very descriptive one.
I feel like the back of the DVD case would have been snappier than that.
It was only about 90 seconds.
Man has to find Christmas doll for his kid on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, but that's boring. I've taken you on a much bigger roller coaster.
Anyway.
So that was that. If you think that was long, you wait for Dogbrain's 58 points.
Point 1. This film is fucking amazing as soon as it starts with the Turbo Man sequence, which is like Power Rangers.
Yeah, I got nothing to add to that, really.
Yeah,
good point. Fair enough.
Point 2. Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a point. I think that's just a casting note.
Point 3. Don't forget, you're my number one customer.
Well, yeah, that actually segues into a point. All of these 90s kids movies, very ambitious they were, like Flubber, like Liar Liar, and they always had the same plot. The dad is overworked and he loves his job more than he loves his children, if we're being honest. And he's never there. And then some high concept thing, hijinks gets in the way, whether it's a science fiction thing like Flubber or Liar Liar, or if it's something else, but there's a thing that needs to happen.
But there was two drivers to kids' movies in the 90s. Either a parent was dead or a parent was overworked. They were the two drivers of, and you can still argue to this day, there's a lot of that about, there's a whole plot point which you didn't really mention in the previous movie about her mum being dead.
Yes, and also at the start, at the start, I did think that Arnold Schwarzenegger was a bit miscast because, you know, he's Arnold Schwarzenegger playing the overworked dad. Usually it's someone schlubbier like Robin Williams. But I think, I don't want to get into this too much now, but because they use the fact that Arnold Schwarzenegger is a very physical actor, physical comedy is introduced. So, but in the first half an hour when he said, "You're my favorite customer, you're my number one customer," I did think, no, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger, big Austrian man playing a man called Howard.
Selling mattresses.
Yeah.
Is that his name? I didn't even notice that. It's like, I watched this film this morning and didn't notice his name's Howard.
It should be someone like Jim Carrey, like Robin Williams, who looks like a regular schmo.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's massive, and they throw in the occasional line, "You can't bench press your way out of this one."
Although, actually, I feel like if you were going to cast Sinbad with him, he needed to be big, because Sinbad's pretty big.
He's pretty big, but...
So, and I was like, oh, Sinbad's quite small. And I was Googling Sinbad this morning, because I was like, what else has Sinbad been in? The answer is everything in the 90s. But, yeah, and he is a tall man himself, and Arnold Schwarzenegger towers over him.
Yeah.
And then it's like when you've got Anakin Skywalker and him, it's like Anakin Skywalker looks like he's meant to be probably like 5 or 6. He looks about 6 months.
But this was a problem only for the first half an hour that I felt he was miscast. Once the knockabout comedy of them beating the shit out of each other in order to get the Turbo Man running from store to store, and eventually him having to be Turbo Man. There's a parade at the end where Turbo Man, and of course hijinks ensue, convoluted plot points. So eventually it's Howard being put into the Turbo Man costume. They of course need someone who looks like a superhero. So it's only the first half an hour. God, he's miscast. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's actually perfect for Arnie. Is that?
Yeah,
that
and
was
he does
thought.
like who would look better in a Turbo Man costume than Arnold Schwarzenegger. So actually, it works, and I think that's the whole thing with a lot of these weird, like Kindergarten Cop and things, these high concept Schwarzenegger movies from the 90s. Is actually because they are built around him, they're Schwarzenegger vehicles, they do end up working, even if on paper they shouldn't.
I bet there was an earlier draft where it was a schlubbier guy, but once Arnie said, "Oh, I'm interested in doing a kids comedy," they said, rewrite it for Arnie.
And a big 30-minute action sequence at the end, or 20-minute action sequence.
You can't bench press your way out of this one.
And what about you, Mr. Dogbrain?
Well, it turns out that Arnold Schwarzenegger weren't the first choice for Jingle All the Way. Originally, I'd imagined someone like Steve Martin or Chevy Chase for the role, but apparently Arnie were looking for a comedy, Randy said. And that's taken from Google, but you don't say who Randy was. It's like the director or writer or someone in it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't surprise me at all.
I just think, even for mid-90s, surely Steve Martin and Chevy Chase were maybe just that bit too old at that point. I know I can see like it's a Chevy Chase or thingy type, but they're the kind of people that would have been in that film in the 80s. But I feel like in the 90s...
Often these scripts do knock about for a long time. It could have been written in the early 90s.
Knocked the whole table.
Sorry, that were me. Oh, material.
Got a bit excited.
I love Christmas. Yeah, I think like if you're like Chevy Chase or Steve Martin that have already been in Christmas films, you wouldn't want to be in another one, so you get typecast in Christmas films.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Chevy Chase was, of course, in the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yeah. Well, he was in all the vacation, not all of them.
But, yeah.
Not till what was
Randy
that?
Quaid.
Van Wilder Party.
Yeah.
So I've got another note here. The CGI reindeer were extremely good for 1996.
How much of it? I was trying to work out how much was real reindeer, how much was CGI, and how much was animatronic. Because obviously, like the bits with it, like burping and drinking the.
I imagine
things
any
were animatronic.
close-up was an animatronic, but running through the house was probably
It was good.
CG. No,
yeah,
it
I
was.
thought that. Like the fur rendering was good. They must have spent some money on it.
Also, the flying sequences towards the ends.
They're not terrible.
They're not
the
terrible.
worst. The worst bit is where it's just Arnie and he like goes. You know, he goes up to the top and like looks at the camera. That bit's pretty hokey. But outside of that, it works.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
I noticed that when Howard comes out the house and it's a close-up and it's nipping at him, that's CGI. And I was like, wow.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, there was a cut, but there's also, but you know, when he gets into the car and it's just like obviously a crew member on the floor with a pair of ears, you just see like an ear next to it, and Howard's like, and Phil Hartman's having to pretend to like wrangle it. I have to admit, there's a thing I have with Phil Hartman, and it's a similar thing I have when I hear British voices in like British character actors I know in things. Is that I'm just like, his voice is too recognisable. I'm just like, oh, it's the Simpsons guy. And it takes me out of things. Like, he's just, I think that happens sometimes. It's nothing against Phil Hartman. He's really good as this slimy guy and this, like, perfect for this role. He plays it so well. But just his voice, I'm just going, well, that's Troy McClure.
Yeah,
Really, that's
you know,
Troy McClure.
I separated myself when I watched it because it's been so long since the Simpsons. So I watched it as if that were the first time you heard it.
Okay.
It does make
Callum
me...
watches The Simpsons
Yes.
all day, every day. So.
I think he's a good enough voice actor to separate that. I sort of separate his live action stuff and, you know, so news radio is a
news
different
radio
entity.
feels a bit different.
I also think he's very good at playing that. He's played that a few times, a slimy, the other dad. You know, he's like in Small Soldiers, he plays basically the same character.
He does,
he's
yeah.
slightly less creepy, but more or less the same.
Did you know that him and Sinbad did 3 movies together in the 90s?
No, I did not.
Yeah, apparently that was their third film together.
I can't say I really know Sinbad other than for being in Jingle All the Way. I mean,
He's
He was-
awesome. He's so good in this. I love him.
He was in so many things in the 90s, though. He's massive.
he was like the... I've completely forgotten who I was going to compare him to, so we can cut that out.
Rita Wilson's similar, though, isn't she? She's a kind of a safe pair of hands that was in everything in the 90s.
Yes.
But actually, when you think she's still in everything now, but she's always in like a... She's always like the fourth lead, so you never really pay too much attention to her, but she always is just really dependable. Like, think of a film she's bad in.
That is very true.
There's none.
No, there is absolutely none.
It's a really good cast. Like, it's a really good cast. Even I hate child actors, and I know obviously like Anakin Skywalker got a bit of stick later on, but for the role he plays in this for Jamie, he's like perfect. He seems quite realistic. Child actors are either one of two things: they're either wooden or they overact, and he kind of is just about right.
He's not precocious.
He's not
like
annoying. He's like, if you had him as a kid, you'd be like, oh, he's actually quite a nice, sweet kid. He's not like an annoying little prick like some kids.
He has to sell anger quite well. Like when he's on the phone, like, you never come, you're a liar, and slams. You know, that sold me quite well.
And then all you got to do is buy him a toy, and then he snaps out of it and loves you. He's a bit of a materialistic child.
Well,
you know?
or
Consumerist.
actually,
Everything's
he
sold
didn't
with a
want the
toy.
toy, did he? He gave the toy away. What he actually wanted was his dad to be a superhero, which is even harder
probably
to get.
worse.
Yeah, exactly.
I got the
because-
real Turbo Man.
I mean, like 99.9% of the year, you're just going to have your dad in normal clothes doing dad stuff. He's still got to go to work.
I mean,
he's not always going to be Turbo Man. Is he fucking stupid?
And
He
if
should've
anyone's
took the
seen
toy.
Invincible, maybe having your dad as a superhero is not ideal.
I also imagine, I know that there is a sequel to this with Larry the Cable Guy, but if there was a real sequel
Probably
to this,
unwatchable as anything with Larry the Cable
if there was
Guy
a
is.
real sequel to this, it would be how the dad continues to be a disappointment. He continues not to show up at the games, and every so often he'll emotionally manipulate him by saying, "Do you remember when I was Turbo Man? That was 7 years ago, Dad. Stop doing that."
Man. And then texting comes out, and then like hands-free calling and FaceTime. He's never seeing his dad again.
Actually, that was an interesting point. You know, there's the bit where like there's the they're in the parade at the end, and Turboman's fighting with Sinbad and stuff. That I was like, oh, no one has a mobile phone that they're pointing and videoing this. No one's videoing it. I was like, if that was happening now, every single person. I was like, oh, Jamie will be able to show his friends at school on Monday when he takes the vid. Oh no one's videoing because this is 1997.
Instead,
and there wasn't the paparazzi everywhere videoing every single thing.
Instead, he's going to go to school, say, "My dad's Turbo Man."
People go,
the absolute
sure.
shit kicked out.
Yeah,
of
you
him.
are such a lying little shit.
This is going to have such a bad impact on that child.
Yeah.
And I imagine if this film were made today, it would just... You couldn't do it because the mum would just put an order on Amazon Prime for the doll and she'd have it. And then the dad could stay at work, probably have an affair.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's your story.
Quite a depressing movie.
And also,
really.
we've normalised like 70-hour work weeks and things for putting food on the table. And with inflation as it is today, no chance.
But he would be working from home and the kid would have him around and then he would just start shouting at him because he's playing with his Turbo Man doll.
Yeah, when he's on, can you stop? I'm trying to have a Zoom meeting with my boss.
Jimmy.
Sorry about that. You're my best customer.
Jimmy,
keep it down.
Jimmy.
I do have to say a big positive in this, that big feather in this movie's cap is its commitment to physical comedy. And it's really unlike the last film where it made me laugh despite being not particularly very good physical comedy. This time it's very well done with a comedian, Sinbad, who is quite committed, and Arnie, of course, is known for being physical. Lots of fights put in this scene. Probably once Arnie signed up, they said, let's get some fights in here. So the fight scene with the warehouse full of Santas, very funny. The running around the mall where it's like, we'll give a Turbo Man to whoever holds this ball, and they're fighting over this ball, very funny. I was laughing quite consistently at him being chased through the house by a reindeer. Very funny, you know, or the ending where he's doing the Turbo Man thing and he's in the costume and beating up those actors. Very funny. It's very funny consistently throughout. It's a very committed cast to doing very funny physical comedy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like it. I actually think it's a reasonable movie. You know, it's not perfect, but who's expecting an Arnold Schwarzenegger Christmas movie to be perfect? You'd have to be mad.
It's my favourite Christmas film.
Ugh.
But it is. It's funny. It's 90 minutes long, so it's a good length. It's not too long. It doesn't outstay its welcome. I think it's pretty well cast. I like all the characters. And it has a couple of like surreal, biting, funny bits in it as well. Just some of the little sayings and things. Yeah, I like it. I think it's a good... There's some absolutely shocking Christmas movies out there, and this isn't one. This is wholly watchable.
Good, clean, family fun.
Yep.
Well, should we rate these two films and see what we give them?
I think we should.
I think that's a good idea. It's only been 4 hours since this podcast began.
Yeah. So, first off, Mr. Dog, Mr. Brains, Mr.
Dogbrain
Mr.
videos.
Videos.
Mr. Vids. Mr. Vidsy.
You can go first on... tell us what you think of Falling for Christmas.
Falling for Christmas, right? We're one of those films that you can just drink with a foam cup of cocoa and snuggle up and hate. It's fun to hate, you know. I would never watch it again. It took me an all day to watch it. I would give it a good old 4 out of 10.
Wow.
And that's because
That's kind.
my brother works on these films, you know, set decking and that. And I was paying attention to that. It was very Christmassy. Like I said, it made me feel sick, but it also made me feel very Christmassy. And it gets 4 out of 10 for the decorations, mainly.
Jesus.
And 1 for the funny man
Yeah.
in the woods.
And Callum.
I'm not going to be nearly so kind. It gets an extra points for the knockabout stuff with the fiance and the bear guy that was clearly intended to be a romance, but then rewritten hastily at the last minute to drop him from the last half an hour of the movie. But that's the only point I'm giving it extra after a 1, so it's a 2 out of 10.
Funnily enough, I was like, should I give it 1? Is it that bad? Like, there's nothing redeemable about it. And I thought, actually, no, I quite like that stuff too. So I was going to give it a 2 for exactly the same reason. So we've got 4 and 2 2s, so that means 3.
I don't know what the average between 3 people is.
2.66, I think.
Oh, well,
So-
I'll
happy
go
with
for
that.
that, yeah.
2.66 out of 10. And Jingle All the Way.
It's a bloody 10 from me, lads.
And why?
Because it's got everything, it's like action, comedy. Sinbad's great, Arnie's great. It's nostalgic. There's no phones. I love the pervy dad hitting on the mum. I love Power Rangers. There's references to that. And it's my favourite Christmas film. And you can make a drinking game out of it. It's a perfect film. It's perfect. I love it.
Good.
Well, I'm going to give it a proper rating with some critical faculties. It's a good, clean-cut family fun. It's inoffensive.
Hell.
It's watchable. It's an easy film to watch on Disney Plus. It's good, silly, clean-cut fun for the whole family. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.
Johnny just wrote 6 down on a pad and showed it to me, and then he said 6, and now Johnny is loving it.
This is the third. You guys didn't get to hear the episode from. Well, this is going to be out of sequence anyway because it's a Christmas episode. But you didn't get to hear the episode because it fucked up that we did a couple of weeks ago.
The audio mucked
But I
up.
guessed it on that one, and if you remember to the previous podcast, this one we recorded, I guessed it on that. I just can guess all of Callum's scores.
It's a bit sinister, if I'm being honest.
Callum, he actually wrote down 9 and he showed it to you upside down. Because he loves this film, don't you, Johnny? You love it. You think it's a great one. You're with me, aren't you, buddy?
I think I'm going to be kinder than Callum, but probably not as kind as you are. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 because it doesn't do my cardinal sin, which is be too long. It's 90 minutes, perfect. I think Arnie's great fun in it. I think it's really well cast. I think it's really funny. Not like top tier funny, but it certainly passes the 5 laughs tests easily. I think it's quite nice morals and things. I just don't think it kind of like feels that Christmassy. It's not like a Miracle on 34th Street classic, but it is. It was just excellent. It's just really. It's probably up there in my like top 10 Christmas movies. So really enjoy it. So 7 out of 10. So I think that probably divided by is about 8 out of 10 between us, something like that.
I'm happy with that.
We'll do a rough guess there. Yeah,
about that. We're not we're not
mathematicians.
Einsteins, we're not Brian Cox.
But do you think you might have liked it more if I'd read out my entire list for Jingle All the Way? Because I've still got 50 points here if you want to know.
Maybe.
Do you understand the concept of colours now?
No. I don't think I ever will. And you've got to start accepting people who have disabilities.
Well, true. But on that multicoloured ending, we'd like to say thank you to Mr. Dogbrain.
I'm not thanking him.
And Mr. Video even.
For fuck's sake, why can't you get it right?
I can't get it over my podcast.
First name,
right.
Dogbrain. Last name, Videos. No middle name.
Can you
But
stop hitting the table?
To have a middle name. But it's my tail. I just get wagged when I get so aggravated. I'm sat with two men with full collar vision looking down at me like some pug. I got no muscles in my face.
You have a tail, but in your videos you don't.
Well,
and you
do
say
you
that
really
you don't have thumbs, but in your videos you do.
Do you think I'm really going to get my tail out in public?
Well, fair enough.
Are you mad?
But wait a minute, it's clearly out because it's hitting the table. That's why the table's banging.
But that's because I'm happy because the podcast has ended. I got it out.
Okay.
Anyway, please subscribe to Dogbrain videos on YouTube, and please follow our Instagram and answer our questions. And ho ho ho, have a Merry Christmas. Bye.
Bye.
For fuck's sake, why can't you get it right?